Welcome to the Ground and Pwned podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and everything else. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, New York Post's MMA reporter. We have got a decent amount of stuff to get through this episode, including a couple of new games that we can talk about, plus one of the best fight cards we've seen in a while. And we've also got a game that has been fawned over on this show, Scott, since this show's very inception. That is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I've talked about my impressions plenty on this show. I've done previews of it. I've talked about all the latest news. But Scott, you finally got your hands on it. What are your initial thoughts of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge?
Oh, I'm in love with it. I think it's wonderful. I bought it the day I actually was, because I work late. I was sitting there kind of just refreshing PlayStation Store, hoping it would go up very late at night for me to buy and start playing, but it did not. It couldn't give me that satisfaction. I had to wait until the morning. So once my kids were at school and I was awake, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to play this now right away. So I played through the arcade mode like as soon as I could. And I'm so thrilled with it. Honestly, it is everything I wanted and probably more because it was longer than I would have expected to be. There were much more missions than I thought. Everything like flowed together in like actually like a cohesive story, which was kind of wild.
It wasn't just Turtles in Time where
I'm not expecting like a crazy amount of story, obviously, but it's like, yeah, there's like something to this. Everything kind of went from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it was, I don't want to spoil too much. Not that this is a spoiler heavy game, but yeah, I mean, it made a lot of sense. A lot of the settings that you would see in the game based on the Turtles and, where they are. I don't think that's spoiling too much.
It's such a great homage to the 87 cartoon, but also like pulling in elements of other like Turtles things, like the movies, for example. They bring in a few things from that. There's, plenty of characters that you probably forgot even existed from the cartoon.
Not me, but many people.
But yeah, like it's just it is really an amazing game, an amazing tribute, which is great because the developer's name is Tribute Games. It's an amazing tribute to the TMNT games that so many of us grew up on, the ones that we're excited to revisit on the Cowabunga collection, but like a completely new game. It's almost how I felt when they put out Sonic Mania. And I was like, there were some throwbacks to the older Sonic games. Like, I think it was 60% like remixed levels, 40% new levels. But still, it was that same vibe of like, okay, this is like what this version of Sonic would look like if they just kept making these amazing 2D games that they made in the 90s. And that's what this feels like. It's not like, all right, when they got to like the GameCube era and they started making like all these like kind of 3D mindless brawlers that were, I guess, technically functional, but like not entertaining. If they would have just stuck with like the TMNT Turtles in Time style of gameplay, like this is what we would have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't any secret, but like everybody kind of fell in love with the ability to do 3D stuff. So everything had to be 3D, but they kind of lost sight of, I think, a lot of the spirit of what made things very exciting. I watched someone had put together some sort of like on YouTube, just someone stitched together a bunch of like clips from every single TMNT video game that had ever happened. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching this through and I'm like, oh yeah, look at the speed that you're playing with these Ninja Turtle games, like the 2D stuff. And then they do move into that, the 3D, PS2, GameCube era kind of games. And it's just slower. Yeah. It's just not as fun. Like at the very least, you got to keep the speed of the combat and that kind of thing, and don't slow it down. And that way, I think something that they really lost along the way. Here, it's back. It's kinetic. Everything's moving. Like it's not rapid fire, but it's quick and it's snappy. You kind of you got your skirmishes. They go quick, and then you move on to the next one. That's really what it ought to be.
Yeah, the moment-to-moment gameplay is just so well made and so fine-tuned to the point that like I worry about going back to the Cowabunga collection now because this feels so good. And they adjusted so many of like the hitboxes because like that was one of the things when I talked to the developers they really wanted to address was like, if you're playing Shredder's Revenge or Turtles in Time or you're playing the 89 arcade game, those like you have to be on like exactly lined up with a lot of those enemies in order to hit them. And there's other things like enemies would be hitting you from off screen. And those are just like, growing pains of the 90s development scene. But going to Shredder's Revenge and then having to go back to play a game like Turtles in Time, like as much as I love that game, I worry that like the nostalgia is gonna be the reason for that, and like it's gonna be like, oh wow, it's so hard to go back to this game after playing Shredder's Revenge.
I have a feeling I'll probably be able to get past it because my love of that game really does kind of transcend. And I've played it like even recently enough that I feel like it's not going to surprise me or anything like that.
See, I've only played it in the arcade lately, and like, it's always going to feel different on a joystick than it does on a gamepad.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know how it's going to feel when I like fire that up on the Cowabunga, because of course that's going to be the first thing I do. Although I am really itching to give the NES game a try again, because like I haven't played it since it was on the NES. Like I didn't buy
original one.
Yeah, the original NES one, because I was watching walkthroughs and I was like, this guy giving you like, it was, I forget, I wish I could shout out the channel, but I forget who it was, but somebody was like giving expert tips on how to beat the NES TMNT game. And I was like watching it and studying like a lot of his tactics, and like he was writing down like, oh, you want to go do this, you want to farm this resource and everything. And I'm like, all right, I think I could beat this game now.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm like going to take all those notes and try to get through it for the first time, because I never beat it when I was a kid.
I don't think I ever beat it, but I actually did get past the water level, the infamous water level on my own at one point. And I've played it in adulthood, and I'm like, how did I do this as a kid?
Yeah,
like, well, there's no way I really did this, but I know I did.
His point for that level is take your time, because like the timer makes it so you feel like you have to speed through it. But he's like, if you just take your time and like carefully navigate the seaweed, like you're going to be okay, because like the timer is generous enough. If you take your time and just swim through as carefully as you can, there's a couple spots where you have no choice but to get hit.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Wow,
like,
my voice gave out
like
there.
The hitboxes are just the way they are set up. It's like, man, it's really hard to just get through unscathed.
Yeah, absolutely. And just basically watch your health and swim slowly through it and you're good.
Sure.
But we'll
talk about that more when that collection comes out.
Exactly.
We got to focus on Shredder's Revenge. So.
I've actually not gotten all the way through Shredder's Revenge, just because I've been so busy with a review game, which you can read on GameInformer.com right now, but that's Sonic Origins.
Okay.
But we can continue with Shredder's Revenge and then get to Sonic Origins in a second.
Yeah, I definitely want to, and I'll tell you, because I actually blitzed through. I played an arcade mode session, which, as you know, you play until completion. That's not pick up and continue like story mode is. So I played through that. It only took me, I would say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 hours.
That's what PR told us, because like they knew how busy we all were with Summer Game Fest. So like, sure. All right, well, like if you're looking to like manage bandwidth, we would say like a standard playthrough would take about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that sounds
that tracks
like exactly what I had basically.
But yeah, like it's just the game is really fun, and I've played through a good chunk of story mode. So I haven't beaten it, but I've played through a good chunk of it, and I love how it like doles out your abilities and like gives you like experience points basically based on your upgrades and everything. And then also you get side missions, so you can go back through and like try and find like collectibles in certain areas.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of that before we recorded this morning, actually. And there's a trophy, at least on PlayStation, obviously on Xbox, it's achievements, whatever. There is a trophy for 250 hit combo, which I was like, I'm going to get that this morning. And sure enough, I did. So
congratulations
for that one. Yeah. I mean, it's fun. The good thing is, for anyone who hasn't played it, you can actually kind of juggle your enemies a little bit, as long as they're hitting not like a real end game wall, but the obviously the screen,
the invisible wall.
The invisible, thank you. It's going to bounce off of that, so you can just juggle them quite a bit, and that helps. And I'm not sitting, you can't do it forever, because eventually they'll bounce away, because the game's like, all right, we know what you're doing. They want to challenge you a little bit. But yeah, so I gave it a good like 8 attempts this morning right before, and like I would, if I got hit in the early part, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to restart the level, because there's no point. But there's some other challenges that are actually pretty tricky too in that one. Like in the very first level of the game, as you know, Brian, and this isn't spoiling anything, it's the first level, you have a challenge to not get hit for the duration of the level. That's going to be hard, but I kind of want to challenge myself to do that. So there's a lot of replay value if you care about that type of thing too.
Let me tell you that I'm going to spoil a tiny, tiny, tiny thing for you. That challenge comes back in a later level that I've always found very difficult to not get hit in.
Okay. I've played the whole game, so I know.
But okay, yeah. But I'm not going to tell you which one.
No,
but,
you shouldn't. For our listeners, let's save that for them.
I mean, the soundtrack of this game is incredible. By the way,
very good.
T-Lopes,
the in-game music, but also like the soundtrack type music, but also the musical. What do we say? The actual artist provided tracks. What would you call that?
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, they were it's still part of like the soundtrack proper because they were recorded specifically for this game.
That's true. Yeah.
However, like like the vocal tracks.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, like T-Lopes still provided all the beats for that, and then just had like rappers kind of come in and record voice, including Ghostface Killah.
Yes,
which is wild. That like
was it Ghostface and Raekwon?
Yeah, and then also Mike Patton from Faith No More provided the 1987 cartoon theme song in the intro. So that version is so good as well.
It is good.
It's such a perfect homage to like the opening of the cartoon. Like they changed a couple of the scenes just to make it fit more thematically with the game and like how like the game plays. That's not like April getting kidnapped. It's like actually April fighting off foot soldiers.
My son specifically requested that I play as April on my second playthrough.
Really?
Yes. Well, he's 4. He doesn't think about genders and stuff like that. It doesn't bother him. He's just like, you be April. I'm like, okay.
Here's the thing that I like. They brought back. I'm not gonna. I mean, it's news, so it's not really spoiler. But they brought back the unlockable character. It's no longer like here's an extra character you have to pay DLC for. I mean, I'm sure they might do that in the future. Like maybe they'll put Batman in it or something. I don't know. Like that would be cool.
If only.
I mean, that'd be cool if they like did like a little like throwback to Batman versus TMNT.
That would be amazing. I'm not going to hold my breath for it. No, but that would be wonderful.
But like, they pulled off some impossible stuff for an indie game, like getting like all these big name musicians to like contribute to the soundtrack and like getting the original voice actors back. Like, this team has shown they can work wonders.
I think it feels like people are very passionate about the Ninja Turtles. It was a big part of a lot of people's youth and kind of the, I guess the zeitgeist of the late 80s into the early 90s.
Oh, absolutely. Like I think that like the Turtles fandom, maybe this is just my personal experience, but I was like obsessed with them and Sonic and Mario. Well, Mario too, but like then like once my SNES got packed away and I got Sonic, I was like, all right, I'm a Sonic guy now. Like I had Genesis with all the games. I desperately wanted a Sega CD so I could play Sonic CD. And I watched both of the cartoons at the same time. Like I would watch the weekday cartoon and then I'd like wake up in the morning and watch on Saturday and watch the Sonic Saturday morning.
I watched both of those as well.
Jaleel White, man, holding it down.
Oh yeah. He was a busy guy at the time.
He was. But yeah, I think that like the fandom kind of like dropped off once Power Rangers came into play, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of I guess not aggression, but I have a lot of resentment toward the Power Rangers because of what I feel happened to the Ninja Turtles. Not just because it like pushed them out, because at some point people were gonna move on from the Ninja Turtles. It was just that happened to be it. But also, then the Ninja Turtles started to try. They came out with the Next Mutation, the live action show.
Yeah, and
they were essentially trying to aim for that kind of Power Rangers type show where they're live action in the suits and fighting. All these. It was the worst. It really was so bad. And it could have been cool. It enrages me that they did that.
Like it could have been cool coming off the heels of the movies, the live action movies.
Sure.
However, we didn't have prestige television budget back then. Like nowadays, if they were to try a live action TMNT movie or a show, I'd be like, all right, this is cool. Like I'm going to be in this if they actually invest in it.
But I don't know. Cause I mean, even the original movie was an indie movie. It's actually, I think for its time, I think this held for a long time. It was like the most profitable or best biggest box office of an indie movie like ever.
Yeah,
for a while.
Which is so wild because it was like one of the biggest entertainment franchises, and they just couldn't get it greenlit. So like, what was the company, the film production company?
I think it was New Line.
Yeah, it was. It was New Line, and like they finally were like, fine, do it, whatever. And then they did it, and it's like a massive hit. And they're like, all right, how soon can we get a sequel?
and by the way, when you were a kid, did you like number 2 better or number 1 of the
number
movies?
1?
I liked number 2 better.
I like number 2 in the sense, The Secret of the Ooze, because it brought out like Toka and Razor, and then
the end was
with Super Shredder. But like that was always such a super disappointing like fight for me because he just like killed himself. It's like all right, oh my god, Super Shredder, the guy that I wanted to see in this movie and like in live action. It's like, oh my god, and he's horrifying. And then he just like knocks over a deck onto himself, and it's like, all right, well, that was fun. Like, come on,
Hey,
I want to see the Turtles
spoiler
actually
alert,
fight
sir.
him.
This movie's not quite 30 years old yet.
But we've got a lot more to talk about, Scott, and I think we should move on.
Though?
We do. But
right.
the good news for our listeners, if they're not into TMNT, is that we're probably done like talking about like pre-release stuff with this because the game's actually out now.
Well, we're definitely done with pre-release stuff.
However,
I don't know how much more we're going to add to this conversation unless they start adding, Batman, like you're saying.
Here's the bummer. We've been talking on this show so much about doing crossplay and playing with each other, like because this is a topic that has persisted over the course of this show's existence. And you got it on PlayStation. I have it on PC, Switch, and Xbox.
You got it on literally every other console except for and availability except for what I have.
And
it feels purposeful.
Crossplay is not enabled with PlayStation and any other console.
Not as yet.
They're I think right now it's only between Xbox and PC. So Switch is also excluded from the party. Right. But they're saying that they want to add crossplay to the rest of the platforms as well. It's just not at launch.
I mean, okay, fine. I can live without that because there's probably enough people on PlayStation that once I get on the right page, I'm just trying to like recruit more people to play it. And realistically, I think I said this. We could do a share play situation. You'll essentially play local with me, but from your place in Minnesota and me in Jersey.
I'll be like Casper the Friendly Ghost sitting on your couch.
That's good.
I like what Casper. That means. I don't know what that means. Let's move on.
Yeah. Let's move on.
The joke didn't land. Let's move on. So I actually was writing a review for Sonic Origins, which is basically the Cowabunga collection, but for Sonic. So it gathers Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, and Sonic CD. So 4 games technically. So I actually asked Takashi Iizuka, who is the director of Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. I asked him when I was out in California. I said, hey, do you consider Sonic 3 and Knuckles 1 game or 2 games? Because, it uses the lock-on technology in the Genesis. And he said, it's 1 game.
Okay.
So he's the director. So he has final say there. But I've long considered it 1 game. But anyway, so it's Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic CD in 1 package. There is a classic mode where you can play through it as it was originally, or with like the standard, like I don't know what the aspect ratio is, but like the square aspect ratio of like the Genesis days.
4:3,
or
I think
4:3, yes. Or you can play it in the 16:9 widescreen format in Anniversary mode. That also adds the spin dash to Sonic 1. It adds the drop dash from Sonic Mania to all the games. You can play as Knuckles in all the game but Sonic CD. And gets rid of the limited lives. And in their place is a coin system where, if you get like 100 rings, you get a coin instead of an extra life. Or if you get like where the extra life, like the power-ups would be originally, that is now a coin that you get. And then if you like hit a certain score, you get a coin. And those coins can be used to buy stuff in the museum. Or my personal favorite thing to do with it, you can use those coins for extra tries on the special stages to get Chaos Emeralds.
Oh, interesting.
So like I failed like 7 times on this one. And I just depleted all my coins, but I finally got the Chaos Emerald and I didn't have to like wait to find like another entry point to the special stage. It was
That's
so
smart.
helpful.
I like that.
It was such a smart implementation of that.
These are some neat changes. I like what I'm hearing.
There's a mission mode where like you can go back and like it's like, all right, here's like 1-star missions, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, like, and they get more difficult and they give you a lot of coins for doing these. It's just a separate mode. And that like one of them's like, all right, you're in like this area of this one level. Like it's just a very specific zoomed in area. Kill 5 of these enemies. And it's like, if you do it by this time, you get an S rank and that gives you 5 coins. Do it by this time, it gives you an A rank and that gives you 3 coins. So it's like these very specific missions. All right, there's these caterpillar robots everywhere. Kill 5 of them. Or all right, this area is now an underwater level. Get through it in time before like you run out of air. Stuff like that. It's really, really smart what they've done with that. It's like remixed levels.
I like it. I really like. I'm curious what do you think it does to? Let's just go with Sonic 1. What does it do to have these extra moves available that were obviously like retconned, for lack of a better term?
Well, they just weren't there originally, right?
That's what I mean. Exactly. So how does it change the game?
It makes it so much more accessible. And I will say that Sonic 1 and Sonic CD still have a lot of like outdated level design elements and like character like movement problems. Like I'll be like running, I'll be like, all right, well that death was kind of BS. Like I was just running and then suddenly like there's like intentionally a thing that's meant to like kill you, and it's like, oh well, I wouldn't have known that was there unless I did trial and error. And like that's something that was very indicative of the late 80s early 90s gameplay, right? And then Sonic 2, I feel like they remedied
that bled over from the arcade mentality.
Absolutely. Like, all right, we got to get these guys coins, we got to get their tokens. So yeah, that is something that it still persists in Sonic 1 and Sonic CD, but Sonic 2 fixes a lot of it. There's a problem with Sonic 2, both audio problems actually. Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles both have audio issues, but not the way you would think. So they're not like glitchy or anything like that. But I mean, I guess Sonic 2's thing could be considered glitchy. Sonic 2, if you've played Sonic 2 before, you know, like
I've played it once or 7 times. Sure.
When you're playing with Tails, he gets left behind all the time.
Yep.
Like you're faster than Tails, so he like gets lost, and like the camera follows Sonic. So like if Tails falls too far off screen, he'll fly back and then he joins you. With this version, he just jumps incessantly, like, and you just hear boop, boop, boop off screen because he can't catch up to you, and he's trying to like he like glitches out. His AI does, and instead of respawning, he just jumps constantly, and it's to the point where I had to mute it on multiple occasions. It was just so annoying to constantly.
They're gonna patch that, I'm sure.
It's got to get patched. Like it's like the biggest problem with this bundle. And the other thing is that some of the songs in Sonic 3 and Knuckles have been replaced with the prototype versions of the songs, which are completely different. So
now, why was that?
The prevailing theory is that originally Michael Jackson composed several of these songs, and then when the allegations against him came out, they said, well, we don't want to have his credit on this game that's meant for kids because you know, it's a very bad allegations against him involving kids.
Yeah.
So the prevailing theory is that that's why Sonic 3 and Knuckles barely ever saw any re-releases, and that was because these 3 songs, which I believe were Ice Cap Zone, Carnival Night Zone, and Launch Base Zone, all in Sonic 3, were composed by him. And if they did that, they had to pay royalties to the estate, and that's why we haven't seen a re-release of Sonic 3 in I think like 10 years. The last one was on Steam, I believe.
Yeah, but
this new version changes out those songs for significantly worse versions, or worse songs, I will say. Like they're completely different songs. They're significantly worse, and it removes, I said this in my review, it removes a good chunk of the nostalgia of those levels, which really sucks. But the way I look at it is like, if it's like we either have these crappy songs or we have no Sonic 3 in this bundle, I'd much rather just have Sonic 3 with those songs replaced.
I mean, obviously Michael Jackson is kind of a different topic all in itself, but the 2 things that come to mind as you're talking about this is, one, obviously no one had any suspicions about any I guess acting incorrectly with Michael Jackson and children at the time, even not in the 90s. We certainly weren't joking about that as children.
No, yeah, but like, I mean, that it was right around the time that it came out, that so like it was like poor timing. And like, you know, Sega had a great relationship with Michael Jackson back in the day. They had Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Remember that game? So like, and he loved the Genesis sound chip so much, like the sounds that it could make, that's why he wanted to compose songs. I mean, this is all based on reports, because the real story has never been put out there by Sega, I don't think, because it was just immediately, to use your word, retconned after the allegations came out just before the release of Sonic 3. But like, if you compare, like I've watched like comparison videos where they go in and they say like, all right, well, here's like this Ice Cap Zone song compared to this other song that Michael Jackson wrote or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, it's like the same beat. Like, it's wild how like he sampled a lot of stuff, and it's like stuff that he's sampled in other songs as well.
Interesting. The only other thing that kind of comes to mind too is like, I get it. Like, you don't necessarily want to prop up Michael Jackson anymore. Like, I don't necessarily think we should have been doing it to begin with. But, you know, if the money goes to his estate and his children weren't the ones who were doing this. I don't care if they get the money. I really just don't.
I don't think it was the money thing. I think that it wasn't like the morality of giving them money. I think it was this is really freaking expensive.
Well,
that was more of the thing of like, we've got to pay royalties to them if we're going to use their music, and stuff is expensive, man.
Yeah, don't I mean,
that's why the Beatles weren't like on a lot of things leading up to that, right? Like the Beatles had to have their own Rock Band game. That was the only way they would license their music. And they weren't on iTunes for the longest time because they were expensive as hell. And then finally Apple bit the bullet and like got their rights to be on iTunes, and then now Apple Music.
Yeah, I will take your word for it. I'm not as familiar with that, but I did know about the Beatles Rock Band game. I didn't know that was the reason. Interesting.
Doesn't Paul McCartney now own the rights to Michael Jackson's music? I thought that was...
That's probably your realm, sir. Once again,
I'm pretty.
I know that Paul McCartney just turned 80. I saw that. I can tell you that.
What a legend! Love Paul McCartney. But anyway, yeah. So Sonic Origins overall very enjoyable. I think it's the best way. It's largely the best way to play. I think if they patch out that thing with Sonic 2, it will be the best way to.
They have to. That's not going to get ignored. Here's the question I have for you, and I think this is an important question for people at home too. How much does this retail for?
I believe it's $40.
That's not bad.
No, I mean it's not Shredder's Revenge, which is only $25.
Oh my goodness, I thought it was 35 because I was seeing those bundles that were listed at 35, and then because the bundles don't come out, the physical version doesn't come out of Shredder's Revenge until I think August or something like that. It's like a couple months behind. The digital version, when I saw it was 25, and it was actually $22.50 on PlayStation Plus because you get a 10% discount. I was just floored. I was like, no way. This is the best game that I want. This is the game that I want like this year, other than God of War. And it's only $25. Like this is right up my alley. I was so thrilled.
Like, man, it's just a game that like it exceeded expectations in every way. And it's funny that like the price is also cheaper than you expected. Like, it's like, this is better than I expected, and it's cheaper. Yeah. Better than I expected and cheaper than I expected. And that's like the best 1-2 combo you could ask for.
That's like a fight ending combo.
It is. I also got my hands on Sonic Frontiers while I was out in LA, which, it's
I've heard mixed things from that. I know you're a big Sonic guy, so I imagine you're going to look a little more rosier on it than most.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people are saying like, the world is so empty. And I've made this point on a couple of shows now, but like when you can't compare it to something like Breath of the Wild because you're moving so much faster. You can't just have the density that you get in a game like Breath of the Wild where Link is moving so fast or Link is moving so slow compared to Sonic who's moving so fast. So if you had like robots or whatever Sonic's fighting as spaced out as they are in Breath of the Wild, the Bokoblins, you're going to be running into enemies left and right just constantly. So you've got to have it more spaced out in the activities. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, it's too dense for his speed. So that's my like counter to that criticism. And I'm excited to like see how it actually plays out. Cause I mean, I didn't really get a sense for how the open world's going to be, but that's just my like, everybody's so ready to like jump on like this game looks like it sucks because it looks so empty. It's like, well, you've got to take into account how much faster he's probably moving through that open world than Link would.
Sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Like any open world game.
How much can you really know from this type of situation where you're just getting your hands on a little bit of it, right?
It's so difficult when like you have just, 30 minutes in a giant open world game that could take you 30 or 40 hours.
30 or 40 hours for a Sonic game. That would stun me. Wow.
I mean, it seems like it's just going to be a long game, right? Like he said, it's going to be one of the longer, if not the longest Sonic game. I
feel like that wouldn't take much, right? There can't have been
Sonic 06,
game more than like Sonic 15 hours tops, right?
Sonic 06, for as terrible as it is, I believe takes 25 plus hours.
Ooh, terrible and long.
Yeah, no,
there's a fight ending combo.
We did a thing called Super Replay. It's a show that we do at Game Informer every once in a while, and we play through a game from start to finish. It used to be exclusively terrible games. Now we've started doing it with like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Elden Ring and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Because our community really loves those games. So like, they're like, all right, let's do that now. But we used to do it for traditionally terrible games. And I suggested Sonic 06. And boy, oh boy, did we not account for how long that game is. I think it's 27 or 28 episodes of an hour each. And it's made longer because that game is so glitchy that like you die. And then like, if you get a game over, you have to start the level all over. And it's like, some of those levels are really long, and it's just a poorly designed, poorly made game.
So how long was your license to suggest games for this piece revoked?
Well, I mean, they wanted a bad game, but
All right,
they
all right.
wanted
So,
a game.
well, then in
that
theory,
long.
you did your job too well.
Exactly. So that's what I've been playing. What have you been playing?
So yeah, obviously, I've been playing some Shredder's Revenge. I actually have not been playing it as much as I would like to because number one, I did finally because I got so close. I'm like, I got to actually finish this before I kind of divorce myself and move on. I completed Cyberpunk 2077.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's about time. I made sure to do some of the longer quest lines, side quest lines for like main side characters, I suppose, like Pan Am and Judy and Rogue. And I wanted to get them out of the carry as well. I just wanted to make sure I did those before I really finished the game, as I did. Actually, it was just last night that I finished the game. What I'm debating here is, and maybe you can help me because I finished the game and I didn't come away like I definitely didn't love the game. Like love is not the adjective we're going for here or descriptor, I guess. It's a fine game. I guess the narrative just didn't really hook me even by the end. It didn't really get me there. I don't know why. I mean, I enjoyed probably even less so than other people, Johnny Silverhand, and kind of what he brings to the table and that he's always kind of part of these interactions and things. And it was interesting, but I don't know, man. I couldn't get into it. I guess from start to finish, I never got into it. That's the thing I've been saying for weeks, I feel like.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what ending you got. I just didn't feel like it stuck the landing.
No, it definitely didn't. The ending that I selected had to do with, and I'm going to be very vague with this because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't played, but I essentially picked the one where you work. Maybe I should. I'm gonna save it. I don't want to.
Was it a good ending or a bad ending?
I would say it was a less satisfactory ending.
Okay, I got a very bad ending. I feel like
because I looked it up after. I was like, okay, what would be like a better ending? And it was the other one that I was thinking of doing, and I may go back and do that one
just to see how it plays out
before I wash my hands of the game because I just think I'm going to actually just because I have a physical copy, I'm going to sell the game. I'm just get rid of it,
or just look at it on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that, but I don't know. Maybe
is there a trophy for doing the good ending?
I don't know. Is it worth it? Because that took me like 3 hours to finish last night with the other stuff, and I was like, man, and because the way I played a lot of the game was avoiding shootouts and shooting, and part of it was obviously we've talked about this before, kind of just my feeling about guns in the time of right now, but really it's more just the fact that I like to play things a little more stealthy. I always look for more I guess quieter solutions when I'm playing games. That's why I love Hitman. That's why I like Metal Gear Solid, especially 5. I would like to go into bases and like if I would get into a shootout, like sometimes I'd be like, nope, we're just gonna reload my recent save, and I would rather go through quietly and make my way out. So that's just the way I play. But when you get near the end, you can't avoid that. I don't feel bad about spoiling that for anybody, but like because you're like me and you play stealthily and you're looking for alternative solutions, you don't have that option anymore when you get to the very end. And I don't really like that. I don't like that a game. This is probably my biggest criticism that I could give of the game as a whole is that, and I would say this for any game, if you're giving me options for how I'm going to complete certain solutions, that better be consistent all the way through to the very end. Yeah. Because it almost feels like a betrayal because I could build my character differently, knowing that I might need that at the end. It actually started getting much more challenging in let's say a key battle near the end.
Mm-hmm. I know which one.
I think you know the one I mean. And I'm like, man, I died like several times. And like most of these shootouts aren't really killing me. I think I played on like the middle difficulty or whatever, maybe like not easy, but like the next one up at least. And I didn't have much trouble most of the game. But when I got here, sometimes it was like frustratingly bad. And it wasn't just because I let's say was just taking more damage. I just like losing a shootout or whatever. Sometimes there's just like almost screen wiping type damage coming at you. And I didn't appreciate the way that betrayed how I'd been playing most of the game. So that kind of irked me about kind of the end. It left a little bit of a bad taste.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mixed my styles a lot. Like because I'm so bad at stealth. Let me be honest. Like
I'm pretty good at it.
My stealth method is always, all right, I'm gonna try to be stealthy as possible, and then one thing will go wrong. I'm like, all right, killing everybody. That's every single time I try to do anything stealthy in a video game. It's like, all right, it starts off with the best of intentions, then it's just like, all right, everybody's getting shot now.
Do you like the Hitman games, by the way? We don't have to go off a tangent. I'm just
curious. I do. I'm not very good at them.
Okay.
Like I'm bad at because here's the thing about those games. Like I think they're brilliantly designed, but my brain doesn't register a lot of the stuff, like because they're based around like experimenting of what you can do. Like, all right, you got to have this rigged up so like the chandelier falls on him when he walks in the room and all this other stuff. And it's like, I am bad at like knowing the rules of the world because like games are trained, or you're trained by video games to be like, all right, you know the rules, like, you know, like it spells out the rules of what can happen in a game, in a world, and like what's interactable. And I'm so bad at like figuring out where you can not break that and where you can in a Hitman game. Like I would be like there'd be like a thing, like going back to that chandelier example. Like I've been like, oh, I had no idea you could even interact with the chandelier, let alone like set it up to like fall when the guy arrives. And it's like, all right, well, like I just suck at figuring out like what is and isn't okay in that world.
So this would be something where this is just the way you and I play games differently, it would seem, because when I play, and this actually goes back to Cyberpunk, I could tie it back at the end, but when I'm playing a Hitman game, I go through the entire level. I scout everything before I even really do anything. I just like to explore. This is how I play a lot of games, is I'll just go in and I like to just explore places. That's why I'm almost like, I would rather, I wish that there was like an Indiana Jones type of video game that didn't even have conflict. You're just like scouting around and like scouring places and looking for things. And then that would be it. Like I would actually like games like that where you're just exploratory and get out. And you don't even have like actual shooting conflicts with like other enemies and stuff. I don't know why. I like that kind of thing. So I'll go around Hitman and I'll look out. Okay, these are the different types of traps I could do. These are what's in these rooms. I'll look around. I'll gather everything. I pick up everything that's on the ground. So I'm like walking around with like 10,000 like sculpture heads and things in my, in my inventory. And obviously they just sit in my chest. You know, it's one of those inventories. But yeah, so I'll do that. And then this is basically how I was playing Cyberpunk. When I would get to, you know, I think I used this word before, a dungeon, you know, so to speak. I would get there and there's cameras around in Cyberpunk world, right? So you get these, you can kind of go in and hack the camera and like look around, and I'd scan everything. I would look around and I would just make sure I had the lay of the land and everything before I even went in.
Wow.
And when you get to the end, there's not really much of that. And you don't have the time to do it anyway. So I didn't really like that.
So I mean, knowing you, I know you're a fan of the Arkham series, which allows you to do a lot of that. Are you a fan of the Assassin's Creed games?
I am. There's always been parts, especially for let's say the older style, because obviously there's the point of demarcation at Origins where it kind of changes the way. But the older style, I love the parkour, but also I hate the parkour when I'm just trying to run on the ground, because
suddenly you run up a tree.
The number of times where I would just get caught on like a walkway railing.
Yep.
It's just such a pain. And it would like enrage me sometimes. Like not screen, you know, not throwing my controller type of rage, but I'm like, what the heck, guy? Can we fix this?
I hated the tailing missions of like
those later. Are the worst. They're always the worst.
Like Assassin's Creed 4 was the most egregious offender of it, where it's like, all right, we just got to follow this. 3 and 4 were actually the most egregious with that. And
which one is 4 again?
Black Flag, the pirate one.
Oh yeah, okay.
I like that one a lot, but like there are so many tailing missions that like it just drove me insane.
I think 3 was where I started to get real mad.
Well, 3 was the one that a lot of people noted was like a fall off from the Ezio trilogy. But yeah, I think that we should wrap up with video games here and move on to MMA. But first, there were 3 pieces of news I wanted to talk very briefly about. First up was a Final Fantasy VII anniversary live stream. And we got news that there is a Crisis Core remake coming out alongside like the mainline Final Fantasy VII remake. And then also they announced when we're going to get the second part of Final Fantasy VII remake called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Everything's going to be something, I guess.
And that I believe is coming
They said
2024?
winter 2023,
Okay.
if I remember. Now, does that mean within a year, or does that mean next winter?
I think it's here's the release schedule that as I understand it.
Okay.
Later this year, Crisis Core remake.
Okay.
Next year, Final Fantasy 16. Following year, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth.
Okay.
So I think we're getting this early 2024.
I feel like you, almost with like every Final Fantasy product, you just have I always assume it's going to be later than they say anyway.
Yeah, that's probably a safe bet. But yeah, so that's the Final Fantasy 7 news. Next up was Overwatch 2. I attended a conference call with the developers of this and basically got the rundown of how their live service model is going to work. So they're going to operate on a 9-week seasonal structure. It's going to be a free-to-play multiplayer, 9-week seasonal structure. And
Overwatch 2 is free to play
starting October 4th.
Wow.
So 9-week seasonal structure. Every season brings, I think, like 30 plus new skins. Every new maps, new cosmetics, and then a new mythic skin, which like changes, and like you can change the color, you can change like the design of these like special skins. Loot boxes are gone. Now it's going to be like there's
loot boxes. We're gonna miss those.
Now there's going to be a like a battle pass that you can do, as well as weekly objectives and like just an in-game store. So like you actually won't have to worry about like, oh, I got so many duplicates. So that's going to be nice.
This sounds very much parroting the Fortnite model.
I think it very much is.
Which I don't think is a bad thing.
And then every other season, so every 18 weeks, you'll get a new hero.
Okay.
But at launch, October 4th, they'll, I think, 6 new maps, 3 new heroes, and I wanted to say it was like 40 or 50 new skins. So that's October 4th. That's coming to all platforms, all cross-play, all cross-progression. And then in 2023, they're going to have the PvE co-op experience come out as well.
Okay.
So that's why it kept getting delayed. And then they eventually decoupled it. So now it's going to be kind of like a GTA Online situation, only in reverse. Because they're going to put out the online first. And then later on, they're going to put out like the offline, or not offline, because you still are playing with friends, but like against the CPU.
See, I don't think that's a bad way to approach it.
No, not at all.
Like, I think people can accept that, especially when you're starting with the free to play.
Yeah. And I've been saying that the Marvel's Avengers game should have decoupled their multiplayer and story mode long time. I was actually talking about this on the show, and if they put out that single player mode, the game would have gotten so much more well received. And then later on, be like, oh, now you can play it online with friends. Like the online part would still probably be pretty critically bashed. But like, I think this decoupling notion is one that's going to become very, very popular in the industry. I think GTA Online really set that kind of expectation of like, all right, we're going to put out, like we're seeing The Last of Us. The Last of Us 2 put out its single player thing, and they're like, all right, well, later on we'll put out a multiplayer experience as well. And then they eventually said, you know, the multiplayer version, this is actually 2 weeks ago, Naughty Dog came out and said the multiplayer is now its own standalone game that we're going to be putting out, I think, in 2023.
Not only that, like the idea of separating them for that purpose, but also if you can do them standalone, and I don't think everyone does this, and I'm not even sure if that's what you're saying here, but maybe I can just download that part and not download, the story mode, or vice versa.
I think that's the way it goes. Or
like someone like Call of Duty takes up like just a billion gigabytes on your drive, and if you have a console, if your PC, obviously you can just do different things, but on a console you only have so much space on there. I think on the PlayStation you were getting to the point, on PlayStation 4 you were getting to the point where you had Call of Duty, and then that was it. You couldn't fit anything else. That, or like NBA 2K, like
another problem as well. But so that's the Overwatch 2 news, just really run down real quick. And then the very final thing, which is extremely quick, Todd Howard of Bethesda gave an interview, and he said that we already knew that Elder Scrolls 6 is in development. We know Starfield's coming out next year. So those are the next 2 like Bethesda Game Studio developed games. He said that Fallout 5 is next after Elder Scrolls 6.
Okay, so that'll be somewhere like around the time my kids graduate from high school.
2027, 2028 maybe.
Not quite there, I guess. But yeah, that's a long way down the line.
Yeah, I would say, I would predict Elder Scrolls 6 is probably a 2024, 2025 game.
Mhm.
At least. I mean, you have to think like Starfield is next year, originally
Right.
this year. And now we have probably 2 years at least between that and the next Elder Scrolls game. And then you have to think there's at least 2 years between Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. But like,
And
at
pending
least we
some
know
sort of
that
delays in there too.
yeah, at least we know it's something that's being worked on though.
Sure. No, I mean, I would assume that they're not going to abandon that. Like, so how did you feel real quick about Fallout 76?
I tried it when it first came out. I was like, I don't think this is for me. And
I
I've
couldn't
heard
get
it's
into it
gotten
either,
much
and I do
better.
love Fallout.
I've heard it's gotten much better, but it's still like, I don't want to play Fallout with other people. Like, I understand like the appeal on the surface level, but once I get in there, it's like everybody's just being a jackass and I don't want to deal with this shit.
I want to play Fallout with one other person or maybe
Yes.
two other people, but I don't want to play open, multi MMO style.
Yeah.
That's not what I want. I
Yeah.
would like it if like you could jump into my co-op world or something. That would be neat.
Yeah, well, that's basically go play Far Cry.
Yeah, I guess
Far Cry.
that's a way to do it.
like just go play Far Cry 6. I will defend that game. I think that game is a lot of fun
I know,
and like
you
has
were
a lot of
big champion of that one.
a lot of good story moments that like some of it didn't land quite as perfectly as I think they planned, but like Far Cry 6 is like just like a more action packed Fallout game in a lot of ways, but also like you can hang glide or paraglide off a cliff and stuff like that, like stuff you can't do in Fallout.
It's a less ambitious game in terms of scope too.
Yeah, but it's a huge island that you're like able to like ride around on like a speedboat or a jet ski. Like there's all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, for sure.
But there's some DNA there, like where you're going around just like, all right, you enter this area, you're grabbing all the loot and then moving on. But that's another story for another day.
The only thing I even want to say and I want to move on to fights too, is the only thing I want to say is I got a nice Father's Day gift yesterday.
Oh, happy Father's Day, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. My Father's Day gift from my kids was Nintendo Switch Sports.
Hey, nice.
Have you played it yet?
I've not.
I only played 2 of the sports. Actually, I technically 3. I guess I played one match of another one, but we played as a family the bowling,
Of course.
which was fun. My kids are 6 and 4, so like they can do it. They're it's challenging for them. My son is in OT. He gets a little bit of work with his hands there, so it's a little bit more challenging for him to kind of get some of the buttons and stuff, but like we help him along, and we were having a lot of fun. He was having a great time playing it. I feel like it's actually a good thing for, I don't know how many parents are listening to this show, but if you've got kids that maybe need a little extra help like that, a game like this can be really good because you're getting their hands moving and like working on them being able to push buttons and stuff. So we had a lot of fun with that. I did the sword fighting, whatever that one's called.
Shambhala.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of fun. I was enjoying that one, and then I played like one match of tennis. So
Okay.
yeah,
I did buy it because I was like, look, I'm gonna have to play it. I have a Nintendo podcast. Like I've done my Switch Sports episode with our reviewer, and it's like, all right, I'm probably gonna hold off on that. I'm holding off on Mario Strikers, but Switch Sports, I was like, it's $40. It's not going to get cheaper than that for the foreseeable future. I'm just going to buy it because that's going to be a fun game that I can have friends over and play. Like Mario Strikers, I feel like I'm going to wait until there's a little bit more content in there before I jump into that.
that seems fair. I think you and I have to do bowling though at some point. We
Yes.
definitely at least will do that.
It's on my Switch, so I'll fire it up at any point.
Oh heck yeah, we'll do that.
All right, we got to move on. We're getting pretty late in the show already, and we haven't even talked MMA.
Oh yeah, we got to go to this because obviously the fights on Saturday were just off the chain.
Yes.
I know you didn't get to watch all of them. You missed a lot of the prelim action where a lot of the bread and butter was, and I'll get to recommendations on that. But let's start with what you did watch. And I think the big thing from that is, of course,
Olivier Aubin Mercier beating Hausch Manfio at PFL.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, let's get back to UFC Fight Night.
There's that too.
No, I only saw 2 PFL fights. I saw the Jeremy Stevens fight and I saw OAM's fight, and that was it. And then I had to leave because I was out to dinner at Buffalo Wild Wings.
We will definitely get Buffalo Wild Wings and stuff. That's where I watched my fights last week for UFC the pay-per-view.
It was basically my embassy. I was on the road in South Dakota visiting some family, and there was not a whole lot to do in this town. So whenever there wasn't a whole lot to do and everybody was just kind of settled in for the night, I'm like, I'm going to go watch some fights at the Buffalo Wild Wings. So that's what I did for, well, first of all, it was a group outing on Friday night. And then Saturday, I was like, I'm just going to go by myself. So I was like, that was my excuse to like get away and just kind of watch the fights and listen to way too much like patriotic music, because that's all they play there in South Dakota.
What? If you're going to watch UFC, I feel like patriotic music is kind of the anthem.
I get it, but I also had what was approximating a migraine by the end of it because of like, I was just so tired of it. But yes.
That sounds very un-American, sir. You be careful.
Oh my God. But yes, the main event,
this is where we really ought to start here, because it was an interesting fight. A lot of people kind of, came away with feeling it should have gone one way or the other. Regardless of that, we have someone who is very close to maybe challenging for that featherweight title here in Josh Emmett, who was the one who has the win. He got the win out of this. Do you like the idea that maybe he could be next in line, or do you think he ought to be, maybe one more fight?
Here's my thought on it. I think that it all depends on how Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega's fight goes down. Because if Brian Ortega wins, no matter who is champion after this Volkanovski-Holloway 3 fight, it would have put down a massive beating on Brian Ortega.
Yep.
However, Yair Rodriguez is a fresh challenger for both of them. And I think the UFC wants to give him the opportunity a little bit more than they want to give Josh Emmett at this juncture.
I think they've loved the idea that Yair would get to the title at some point for a long time, but
there's no
he's obviously had some difficulties working with them over the years too. So he hasn't necessarily been the quote unquote good soldier that we often see the UFC reward. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't, that's a different conversation, but that is a complicator in the reason why maybe we haven't seen him get to that point yet.
Yeah. And I think that Josh Emmett is another person that the UFC really likes. But I don't like, I feel like, again, he's Brian Ortega's biggest fan right now. I feel like
could be. Yeah.
But Ortega, I don't think is going to get another crack at Holloway. Maybe Volkanovski, just because he came so close to submitting him a couple of times. Like maybe they'll be like, all right, well, he put on a really great performance against Yair Rodriguez. Maybe we give him another shot at Volk. But I think Volkanovski is probably more interested in going up and fighting Charles Oliveira than he would another Brian Ortega fight.
He very much is interested. Having spoken with him a couple months ago, that is actually quite a priority for him to be able to fight for that second belt, go up to lightweight. He thinks he can do it very well. But the only thing I would say here is I could actually see a Holloway Ortega fight being more realistic. And the reason being it's much farther off. It's been almost 4 years since that fight, right?
That's fair.
It was total beatdown, no question. But because of the time between, we have seen the growth from Brian Ortega. It's not unreasonable that they might put something like that together.
But we also got another pretty bad beatdown at the hands of Alexander Volkanovski much more recently. So It's not like he's impervious to receiving that.
Yeah, exactly. No. I would say it would be very hard for Ortega to get that next shot unless he does something spectacular. Although I do think they like him. He's someone who I think Ortega. They actually do like the UFC.
I mean, he was in Modelo ads. He was in Toyo Tire ads. So yeah, they've definitely pushed him forward as like somebody who they would love to be like a champion at some point. I mean, I would love to see Brian Ortega become a champion at some point. I was rooting for him against Volkanovski just because, it was great to see Volkanovski get the championship. He seems like a really great guy. I love Max Holloway, but I just want to I love it when people finally get the taste of the championship belt, right? Sure. I loved it when Glover got it. I loved when Jan Blachowicz got it, because these are guys that I've been rooting for. They seem like really good guys. And it was nice even for them to just win it, even if they didn't defend it, right? I like having somebody be able to say, hey, I was a champion.
So it doesn't bother you as much, or maybe you're not thinking about this as much when Brian Ortega slapped the friend of Chan Sung Jung?
Oh, the guy from BTS?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the BTS stands are going to come for us if I say I was okay with that. But no. I mean, obviously, that's not a great thing to do.
Yeah. But I think that was something that kind of changed a lot of perceptions about Brian Ortega for people.
But overall,
I'm not even judging. I'm just saying
it seems like that was an outlier, right? And unlike somebody like Tony Kelly, who seems like he's really just embraced being a dick.
I mean, he made just kind of be that. But you know what? He got his comeuppance on Saturday. Did you get to watch that one? By the way,
I did. That was the first thing I saw when I entered was the Yanez just beating the hell out of him.
Oh yeah. And he really laid the wood to him too. I mean, I loved it. It was kind of right from the start. Kelly comes out and what was it, like a flying knee or something like that, and it just nothing was going his way because it was always going to be Adrian Yanez. I thought this was actually like, forget all the let's say the distractions or the outside elements to this fight. I thought this was a total mismatch. I think Tony Kelly brings it. I think he's fun to watch as a fighter, but I just don't think he's on Adrian Yanez's level. I didn't think that before. I don't think it now. I think everyone realizes that now, but I think Yanez is one of those guys who realistically, he's going to be a fixture of these rankings for a little while. His hands are amazing. Oh, absolutely. His record's like 17 or 18-3 now. 2 of his losses are by split decision in Texas, which Texas judging is atrocious. So I'm actually very interested, just because I have the judging thing that I do on the side. I'm interested to go back and watch those fights and just be like, I wonder if the judging in that was close or if it was not great. I mean, because there's a difference.
I think that Yanez is going to, what is he right now? He's 13, 14 or 11, something like that in the rankings.
I don't think he's ranked. Is he ranked?
Is he not? Okay. Maybe I'm just mistaking it, but like, I think he has top 5 potential.
Definitely. I could see him getting really high in there. I don't know. I mean, he's going to I imagine he'll suffer a setback at some point because most people do. I mean, that's just a percentage play.
He's solid as hell though so far in his UFC career.
I'm very interested in his progress as he continues up the ladder. But this was such a beat down of a fight, and everybody wanted to see it because there were 2 reasons why I think most people fell into that they wanted to see Adrian Yanez lay the wood to Tony Kelly. Number 1 was if you heard the comments from last month when Tony Kelly was cornering Andrea Lee, his significant other, his girlfriend, what have you, and referred to Lee's opponent between rounds as a dirty effing Brazilian.
Yes.
Which is not something, I say it out loud because that's what he said. I don't condone that language whatsoever. So I did not like to see that. And it definitely lit a fire under people who maybe weren't paying attention to that fight. They said, oh, let's watch Tony Kelly get his ass beat. And then, okay, so there's that corner, right? Then there's the sect of MMA that looks at comments like that and says, no, that's totally cool. I'm actually about that. Those people probably didn't abandon Tony Kelly until he missed weight the day before. And once you miss weight in MMA, everyone's off you. They don't care anymore. You might as well just go somewhere else. So I imagine the only people who were rooting for Tony Kelly were the people in his corner. And so that didn't happen. No, everybody came away happy with that fight, I think.
And also Adrian Yanez is a very well-liked fighter.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So he was already had an uphill battle.
I had him as my spotlight for the Q&A for the New York Post this week. And post-fight, we had a nice conversation. He was actually really excited because his son, his baby, was going to be at the fight, and it was the day before Father's Day, so he was really all excited for that kind of thing. He just had like a charmed weekend, I think, overall. Yanez.
He's the guy that loves Dr. Pepper, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he loves Dr. Pepper. I don't know. He's just something about him, just like really. He's a fun guy.
We were talking because I said I'm not a Dr. Pepper guy, but then when I explained that I also don't like Coke or Pepsi that much, he's like, all right, listen, I get it. Like, you like Sprite? Okay, fine. You're not a cola guy. But if you like Coke, you like Pepsi, you have to like Dr. Pepper. It's like, all right, that's fair. We're just, different people.
I will say that the top 3 fights on this card were very entertaining. Joaquin Buckley.
Everything was.
Yeah, this entire fight card was great. I would say that Joaquin Buckley showed here's the thing about Joaquin Buckley is I feel like he is always going for the highlight reel KO ever since the Impa Kasanganay knockout that everybody sees 27 times every time Buckley fights.
It's going to be a staple of UFC highlight reels till the end of time. This one won't get bumped out.
Bobo O'Reilly is going to have that knockout.
The Bobo O'Reilly. If anyone's never been to a live event, you need to watch. You need to go just for this one experience where they show the Bobo O'Reilly montage. They play it over Bobo O'Reilly from The Who, and it's just a bunch of clips of awesome things happening in fights in UFC, WEC, with one particular moment at least. And it's
What,
so
you mean Showtime?
I don't think there's any of that, but oh, the Showtime. Oh, I think you meant Strike Force. I'm thinking Showtime Strike Force.
No,
yeah,
Showtime kick.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something to like experience, and I think that's probably the one thing that you just don't get from watching at home. I actually think it's better to watch fights at home unless you're like 10 feet away.
Yeah. I mean, I had a really great view for the only UFC event I've ever been to, which was when Ngannou knocked JDS into next week.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a really good card as well. That was the fight night in, I guess, 2019. I think it was July 2019 in Minneapolis, originally headlined by Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler, but that was canceled, it was canceled, I guess. And then they moved Ngannou and JDS from the next week's pay-per-view to that. And I was like, all right, I'll take that replacement.
Right.
But yeah, so
many good performances.
Kevin Holland
was awesome.
Darce choking Tim Means, like, God, how, like, nobody saw that coming. That's almost as big of a difference from how I thought that fight was going to go than maybe not quite so unpredictable, but Yuri submitting Glover.
I mean, to be fair, it was after he'd hurt Tim Means pretty bad.
Rocked him, and then
those type of things, we see that happen a lot. That's how Cowboy used to win a lot of fights by submission. Is he would hurt you standing, but then he would jump on you and he finish you off with like a choke or something. You know, that's one of those like knock a black belt down to a white belt. You know, yeah. So I don't. That one doesn't surprise me in that context. But yeah, I mean, if you're sitting there and saying, "Oh, Kevin Holland's obviously going to submit him," you'd be like, "Well, why?" That's why.
Speaking of, we're not going to move on quite yet, but like that's how Rodolfo Vieira, who's fighting this week, was submitted. Right? He was just basically exhausted.
Well, yeah, he was just
tired. One of the greatest.
He ran out of gas.
One of the greatest Brazilian jiu-jitsu athletes on the planet.
Yep.
And reduced him to a white belt. Get him choked out.
He got tapped out. That was wild.
Tapped out.
I know you missed the prelims.
Yes.
On this card. And obviously there was a great knockout from Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop. Also, what do they call him? Barack Obama.
Oh my God!
Him a bunch of different nicknames. He looks like Barack Obama more or less. At least a lot of people say. I see it less than other people, honestly, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. On the prelims, I'm just going to go bottom up and just tell you results. Knockout, knees and punches. TKO, elbows. TKO, punches. Split decision. KO, spinning back elbow. That was Ricardo Ramos. You really got to go back and watch that fight. That one especially. Knockout punch from Jeremiah Wells to Court McGee. That's another one. Most of these fights are ending inside of 90 seconds too, which is the wild thing. Is it really won't take you very long to go back and binge a lot of these fights, guys. It's so worth your time. And even the I guess what ended up being the featured prelim, because we lost the Cowboy Cerrone against Joe Lozon fight day of the event, and I actually caught wind of that. I sort of broke open the news a little bit that day. I didn't have it confirmed yet, but I had the UFC officially saying that it was still on, which felt like, as far as we know, it's okay, but we can't really say anything. And I had it on good authority that Joe Lozon was hurt. We ended up seeing that play out, but the new featured prelim ended up being Natalia Silva, who just destroyed Jasmine Jesuda Vicious. Silva came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody really knew much about her. People know about her now. She is a very interesting women's flyweight prospect.
Dude, like it's the card, all indications was like this is one of the most violent cards we've seen in a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I want to go back and watch a lot of these. I think I'm going to watch all the finishes. But I did catch the violence that happened after the fight with Phil Hawes coming at DC with the post-fight interview.
Yeah.
Not your post-fight interview, the post-fight interview.
In the octagon. For them, yeah. Because for the backstory, if anybody doesn't know, Deron Wynn, who Phil Hawes beat, is very much a DC guy. He's essentially his protege. Probably looks at him in a way as almost like a little brother. So to have DC call his fights, which has happened, I feel like it happens every time. They somehow don't avoid putting him on the same card, even though they have other people that can do this. Laura Sanko, where you at?
I remember, I think DC said that like he used to excuse himself whenever one of his guys would fight back when he was an active fighter, but the UFC told him he didn't have that option anymore once he retired. They said if you're going to be a commentator, you've got to be a commentator.
Okay, well, if it's not DC's fault, then I'm going to fault the UFC for that because they can
Yeah.
do other things. Hello, like I said, Laura Sanko's right there waiting for an opportunity. This would have been a great time.
I remember they used to have like Dominic Cruz commentate during like a lot of like Team Alpha Male stuff. And it's like, man, he could not be objective about it. Like it's so hard because like, he has such a deep seated rivalry with that entire gym, basically.
I'm pretty sure he has no respect for Uriah Faber as anything other than a competitor. I think he respects his skills in the cage and literally nothing else about him as a person.
I remember when
from talking to him about this before.
I think it was when Faber retired, we'll say the first time, because he's going to retire again at some point officially.
I think essentially he's done. He's probably just not going to tell you.
When he retired officially, like back in the day, I remember he appeared on Ariel's show and Dominic Cruz actually called in and they reminisced together. I thought that was kind of a nice moment because, they had so much bad blood in their careers.
Sure.
It was nice to hear them kind of be friendly. Like, even though it seemed like maybe at times it was through gritted teeth, but like, it was just a really good moment. I thought hey, let's look back on your career.
Move from Dom, who honestly, we don't always see that level of class in terms of his moves. He's kind of I don't want to say he's classless, but he's a very intense guy. He's not necessarily one who's going to volunteer that type of props. He's not. I don't think he's. I think he can be like a jerk in a sense, but like I don't think he does it because he's trying to get it. I think he's just kind of an abrasive guy.
Oh yeah, I think that I get that sense from him 100%. But back to these fights.
To put a bow on this whole event too, I really want to point out this before we go on is that. Fight of the night, of course, was Josh Emmett and Calvin Kattar, which was a very good fight, obviously, no matter how you scored it. And I do think there's some weirdness in the scoring there. You can listen to my other podcast if you want that. But there was a $50,000 bonus for each of Emmett and Kattar. And then the performance of the night, usually you only get 2. They gave out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 performance of the nights.
Every single finish.
That is an without even coming close. That's a record. Mm-hmm. Now, I will celebrate that to a point because it's wonderful that all of these fighters were able to get bonuses for getting the finishes. We should see this more than we do. It shouldn't just happen here. And what I worry about too, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on this, is that because they handed out so many and because things are budgeted, all that, will we see a few more events the rest of the way where, hey, maybe there's only one performance of the night or, no one's getting a performance of the night. The fights weren't good. It could end up going that way.
I hope not.
I hope not too. But
I hope that this was just them. They made over $1 million in gate, so I'm hoping this is them saying like, "Hey, let's give some of that." I know how the UFC has traditionally worked, but I'm hoping that this is them just saying like, "Hey, you guys brought it. Like, here's a little bit extra money." I know they've made a commitment to keeping the percentage of their earnings go to fighters consistent with what it's been. What is it, like up to like 17 or 18% of their revenue?
Yeah, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a sixth. Yeah, it's not very high.
And I mean but what is that ultimately going to do? Like, giving that what is it? So seven extra performance bonuses that night. So that equates to $350,000 extra.
But how many hands of blackjack is that? That's the real question.
Two
hands of blackjack. That is correct.
So I said this before. I only saw 2 of the PFL fights. They're both good fights, both good performances. I saw Jeremy Stevens take out Miles Price, and I saw OAM beat House Manfio, which that's a very good win for OAM. And he looked sharp.
He did. I don't think it was the most engaging of fights, but I mean, for him to beat the reigning PFL champion, no matter what you think of him, it's whether you think he's a very impressive specimen or if he's kind of he had like kind of the right, I guess, charmed luck, so to speak, I guess, because he took OAM's place last season when OAM couldn't compete. So it kind of just worked out for him. But yeah, it's a good win. It's definitely a good win for OAM, but you didn't watch this. But I'll just sum it up real quick. The main event, which was Clay Collard against Alexander Martinez, in a fight that everybody kind of thought, okay, this is going to be Clay Collard. He'll get the win. He'll move into the playoffs, and then maybe he'll be able to go on and win the championship. Well, he goes in there, and he wins round 1. round 2 ends up going to the other guy, but it's honestly, it's a round that you can certainly make a case the other way. All 3 judges saw it one way. These are local Georgia judges, by the way. These are not like kind of the top level judges that we usually see at UFC.
Top level judges like Chris Lee.
Chris Lee had a bad score on Saturday, but he's honestly he's a much better judge than I think a lot of people would give credit for. But these 3 individuals, round 3, 2 out of 3 saw it for Martinez. And this is a round you just can't give. And I don't say that very lightly. You cannot give to Martinez. I will say this. Clay Collard got robbed.
Wow.
He got robbed.
Using
I don't say
word.
that very often, sir. I really don't. It's something I only reserve for really bad judging. And I think this was really bad judging. And the worst part is, not only did he not get his win bonus, not only did he not get the victory, but now Clay Collard doesn't even get to go into the PFL playoffs. So his run to the $1 million is done because of bad judging, an actual bad judging, not just, judging that could go either way. This was bad. It robbed him. And
wow.
Look, I'm not faulting judges in the sense that they're taking money out of people's pockets, because they don't make the rules, but also they got it wrong. And that's really what matters here. They got it wrong. And I fault PFL especially for it, because they don't care about bringing in top judges. That's the real issue. We get bad judging in PFL all the time, and we're going to continue to, because they don't bring in the top guys.
Man. Yeah, that's disappointing. I didn't know
I hope
about
you go
that.
back and watch that
see
fight, because I think you'll agree.
I feel like I have better fights to watch than
it's a decent fight. It's actually a decent fight, Clay Collard and Martinez.
I feel like I've got like 7 fights I need to go back and watch on the UFC side.
That'll take you 5 minutes.
I mean, basically that's how that card went. But we've got a fight card this weekend, Scott.
We actually have 3. We have Bellator and PFL, but let's just focus on UFC.
Let's focus on UFC.
I think we're going to wrap it up soon.
There are some good fights on this card. I'm excited for Neil Magny versus Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Yes, I talked to Shavkat just the other day, so that's our Q&A for this week.
What a killer that guy looks like.
He has finished every fight. He's 15-0.
I mean, I know everybody at 170 is excited about Khamzat Chimaev, and rightfully so. But good Lord, Rakhmonov looks unbelievable.
He does. And actually, I did ask Rakhmonov about Chimaev, because this is a fight that a lot of people are kind of dreaming about, the two of them fighting down the road, kind of taking over the division, maybe when Kamaru Usman's not in the picture anymore. And he said Chimaev is just another ordinary UFC athlete, UFC fighter. That's just what he thinks of him. He doesn't think much of him.
You know what? The first fight on this card, isn't Vanessa Demopoulos the one that jumped in Joe Rogan's arms in the post fight?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so see if
Rogan's not there for this one though.
No, he was in the audience for UFC Austin though. That was weird. That was really weird.
He lives in Austin now.
Yeah, he does, but it was still weird to see like, oh, Joe Rogan's at a UFC event and he's not on the mic.
Well, if it's going to be weird, it would be in Austin, wouldn't it?
Hey, Mario Bautista versus Brian Kelleher. That's a fun fight.
Yeah, there's a lot of good fights here. I wish I could watch this one live. This whole card, I'm not going to be able to watch much of live because I'll be at a wedding. My good buddy is getting married.
Oh, well, congratulations to your good buddy.
Maybe find a way to sneak off at some point, but we'll see.
Yeah, like check Twitter, be like, all right, Sarukian and Gamrot are walking to the cage. I got to go step out. Smoke break.
Yeah, that's me. Smoking and drinking. That's me.
Well, hey, man,
I don't do either one, actually.
They don't know that. So, I mean, honestly, though, like that's a good main event. That's a hardcore's delight, I feel like.
Great fight. Because there were so many people down on it before because it was like they have no name value. They don't have star value. I don't care. At this point, I just want the most interesting fight to get 5 rounds.
Yeah, these aren't the names that are going to get like the casuals to view. But like, if you know about the up-and-comers in the lightweight division, this is one that you've got to watch.
I don't know that even Josh Emmett and Calvin Kattar was going to bring in like casuals. I think there's very few people that move the needle very much with a lot of people. So I feel like they really ought to just move away from the idea of it needing to be on fight nights, unless they have a really good one and they want to stack it. Like that's fine.
Like Ortega Rodriguez.
Us the best, most interesting potential 5-round fight. And mostly that should be 155 pounds and lower.
I was going to say, that's what this fight typically is like, this is just a banger of a fight with like two guys on the cusp.
The only thing I would say though is I think they could have gotten away with switching the main and the co-main.
I could
see that. And putting Magny and Rakhmonov as the main event. Because
I could
Magny
see
has
that.
carried cards before. I'm not carried cards, but he's topped cards before, let's say. And he's got a lot of 5-round experience. I think if you give Rachmanov 5 rounds to potentially finish, even though he's only needed more or less 2 most of the time.
Yeah.
Magny's a tough dude. He's not easy to finish. So I think you give him 5 rounds, it'd be a very interesting test for him. But I think we're probably going to get 5 rounds. I think it's going to go the different distance, Saruki and Gamrot. So either way, it's kind of win-win.
I'm also keeping my eye on Chris Curtis and Rodolfo Vieira. I know Vieira came up earlier when we were talking about the notion of black belts turning to white belts in certain situations, but that has a lot of potential to be a fun fight.
Chris Curtis is a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, I think we're going to get fireworks at the end. Either way.
Haulian Paiva fighting Morozov. I'm going to butcher this name, but Nchukukwe fighting Carlos Ulberg, who again I've been pretty high on, even though
people like Ulberg,
yeah, he comes out of that same gym as Adesanya.
Oh, I'm much bigger on actually on the prelims here. The one that I'm really looking forward to is Brian Kelleher against Mario Bautista. It's Super Mario.
Yeah, and also, like, of course, it's not the Nurmagomedov, but it's Umar Nurmagomedov fighting Nate Maness.
It's Nurmagomedov, or
exactly.
Nurmagomedov, yeah.
At least we'll probably get a Khabib sighting in the corner.
Very likely.
But yeah, there's a lot of Thiago Moises versus Christos Giagos. There's some really good fights.
I like a lot of these here. There is a heavyweight fight on here, so it's there's a built-in potential break for Josh Parisian and Alain Badeau.
Oh man, we lost.
Either that'll end early or it'll be 15 minutes of heavyweight action, and that's when you can go get your snack or do what you need to do.
Yeah, once they start pressing up against the cage and like they're just both like drenched in sweat and breathing heavy, that's when you can take a snack break.
I believe this is also a later card as well. I think this might be at 10 p.m. Or maybe it's just 7 p.m.
No, it's 7 p.m. Eastern. So it's
7
actually
p.m. Eastern for the main card. Okay.
All
right, so it's not as late
according to Tapology. But we lost 2 pretty interesting fights from this too. Tim Elliott versus Amir Albazi was canceled, as was Tagir Ulanbekov versus Tyson Nam, which
I like Tyson Nam.
Tyson Nam
to lose that one is tough, but I mean, I think it's still good enough.
This card could stand to lose a couple fights.
So here's what I'll ask you, and I should also say that I think we were really high on last week's on this just past fight night, and it totally I think it exceeded our high expectations for it.
We said 4 for the main, or 4 for the overall card and 4.5 for the main event.
Yeah, we both had the same score. So we ended up with I guess that averages to 4.25, which is I think a great score. So that one again, I think it exceeded. I think it basically was a 5. This is a great card, right? What do we think about the main event for this one? 5-star scale. Sarukian and Gamrot. What do you think?
For just the main event.
Just the main event. What's your interest level?
4.
Okay.
4 to 5. I don't know if we can do quarter scales or just half points.
No. Half. Don't go crazy.
Okay. I'm not quite as high on this coming in as I was Cater and Emmett.
Okay.
However, I'm very high on this. So I'm going to give it a 4.
I'm actually going to go for the 4.5 just because I really think the potential for like an excellent fight is there. And that's really all I want. I just want to watch a good fight for 25 minutes or less. As long as the action I think is going to be good, that's where I'm really excited for. And there's value here because whichever one of these guys wins is going to start moving much closer to that title shot. And obviously, you win, obviously you do, but you win here in a big spot as a headliner, a first time headliner. I think there's something that can push you a lot closer to getting into that title picture. So I'm very interested in who wins. So I'm going with 4.5.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I was actually kind of on the border with 4.5.
Sure. I mean, obviously you're talking about quarter stars at this point. So yeah, I get you.
But I didn't want to quite put it on the same level that I put Emmett and Cater.
That's fair.
This is a very, very good fight. This is not like one of the ones that we've seen recently.
So what about the rest of the event? No, I'm not just saying the prelims. I'm saying the rest of the event. 5-star scale. What are we thinking?
I'm probably going to stick with the same score that I believe I gave UFC Austin, which is a 4. Now, again, UFC Austin blew past that. I think the UFC Austin was probably approaching a 5, like with its ultimate result.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just a banger of a fight night. I think it's probably the best fight night we've had in a long time.
I think there's a lot of really interesting matchups on this fight card. It's still not like oh my God, this is like, you got to drop everything you're doing and watch this. This isn't like UFC on ESPN1 where we got like a title fight at the top of it and everything. But I think that this is a good fight card. And I think it's something that if you've got nothing else going on a Saturday night, this is definitely something that is worth turning on and sitting for a few hours to watch.
I'm gonna give my star rating for this one for the rest of the card as 3.5.
Okay.
Which I think that speaks to a solid level of interest. I just don't think it's kind of like what you're saying. It's not with the main event. It's not meeting last week's. And I think it's actually falling decently short of it, but it's still way better than I think the average one. Cause I'm looking at like 2.5 as average. I think 3.5 means this is a pretty good one.
Yeah. I definitely can see yours as well. I just think that this is a solid fight card. And there's a lot of fights that interest me on this card, and including the headliner. I think that this is one that is bordering on appointment viewing.
Okay. So then where's your average end up then? Are you 4s? Is it just 4s?
Yeah, I'm going to say 4.
Okay.
For this.
So it's 4 and 4, and I went 4.5 and 3.5. So
we have
also
4
4
again.
Yeah. Before we go, I did just want to say that I'm kind of curious, which of the is it the Rachmanov and Magny fight? Is that the can't miss fight?
Absolutely. Okay. Rachmanov is on a Rachmanov ship to the championship. Sorry, that was terrible. He's on a rocket ship to the title.
It was a good.
I think that he's the best. He's the closest thing to appointment viewing on this entire card. Although Sarukian and Gamrot are also both phenomenal fighters
for sure.
But Rachmanov is like the guy that you need to see fight, and Magny is a very capable dance partner with him.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's why I actually reached out to get in touch with Rachmanov and speak with him. He was the one I singled out from this card as someone I really thought people should talk to or hear from, I guess. So I was glad to speak with him. But yeah, I think you were right, sir. I think we're at the end of this nice show here, the nice Turtles and fight-based show. And if you enjoyed it, I hope that you will subscribe to us, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Maybe you're listening on one of those platforms. And please suggest our social handles to your friends and follow us at Brian P. Shea and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And if you want to reach out to us with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped about, hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games, and we will talk to you next time.